and today we got to play Applejack. Now, this is a game where you are building an apple orchard. But before we get started, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and the notification bell because board games are amazing. And that's what we do here at Legends.
Or if you're a fan of Applejacks.
I mean, you know, there's that. Yeah. So, Randy, can you tell us a little bit more about Applejack?
I can. This is technically a 2022 release, but it hasn't hit the States yet. So it is still a pre-order at all the sites for some point in 2023. There's not a date.
We got this at Gen Con, so that's how we were able to get a hold of it.
It's a Board Game Geek rating currently of 6.9 and a rank of 3306. It's a 1 to 4 player game, average length of 30 to 60 minutes, which is about right. Age 8 and up, I think that's fine. There's nothing difficult about the game. Designed by Uwe Rosenberg, who's one of our favorite designers. Art Lucas Siegmann, and is published by Stronghold Games. It's a tile placement and set collection game. As I mentioned, it's on pre-order at several sites. Game Nerds has it for $42.97. The cheapest I saw was Tabletop Merchant for $41.99. Of course, shipping, I don't know what the difference is when you add shipping for all these. Miniature Market's got it for $43.99. The MSRP on it, I believe, is $49.99, although some of the sites had it listed as $59.95. So I think but I do believe it's $49.99. I think I paid $50 for it at Gen Con.
Yeah. So now so it's funny because one of our friends actually got to demo this game at Gen Con, and they were like, "Oh, I can teach it to you," and I actually really enjoyed it. And so he actually was able to teach us, so Randy didn't really have to read the rules. But
I did go back and look at them, so yeah.
Yeah. So let's talk about quality of components. There are cardboard tiles. You've got literally Catan. I'm going to give this a straight up 5 because this is like no different than Catan.
Yeah, there's nothing special about the tiles, the boards.
If anything, it has less things than Catan because there's no wooden pieces.
Box. I don't know how they justify the $50 price point for the components. The die is subpar; it's tiny, and these honey-shaped things are not really.
Did you get a score pad?
You get a score pad, yes. That's about it. Yeah, I can't go above a 5 on it. I don't think there's anything outstanding about it.
So I think you're right. All right, now theme. This one's a pretty interesting theme. You've got you're creating an apple orchard. You want similar apples next to each other, but you also want to make sure that the bees are around to be able to pollinate those trees to make them useful for you. It's slightly themed, I think, but it's fun. It's fine. I'm probably going to give this a 5. The artwork's okay. There's nothing... I mean, I feel like it's Catan level.
Yeah, I mean, it's a typical tile placement game. The theme is kind of layered on. This is, as far as Uwe games go, this is not at the difficulty level of your Agricolas or your heavier ones. This is definitely more like a patchwork style game. It's got reminiscent of patchwork in the way it plays.
It feels very different for me. I don't know.
It's still got the going around, the timer going around, everybody taking action.
But it's very... I wouldn't... this does not make me feel like patchwork.
All right. A lot of people are comparing this to patchwork, so I can see the similarities. It's, we'll get into gameplay, we'll talk about whether we like it better than that, but as far as theme, it's probably a 5. I think there's nothing outstanding.
Yeah. All right, so let's move on to the rule book. Now, like I said, fortunately we were taught this game, but Randy did go back and review the rule book.
Yep.
I mean, what did you think?
It's a 12-page rule book, and it does have a cover page that matches the art of the box. Mm-hmm. It's a very simple game to begin with, but it's got a nice setup. It's got, all the explanations of where everything goes to start the game. Very easy to get out. Not to mention all the boards actually have the player counts easily seen on them, so you can determine which way you want to, based on player count, how you want to set it up. There's also these boards, I should mention, are 2-sided, so you can play 2 different ways. One being the standard way, where you have honey on all the sides, and the other side where you have various custom player boards where they have different fruit.
I want to play that side next time.
So, as far as how to play the gameplay is basically 4 pages. It's showing you how to draft the tiles, how you pay for the tiles, which actually the math in this is probably a little more complex than Patchwork or one of those other type of games. And then the scoring at the harvests and how you score your fruits, and then at the end of game as well. So, the gameplay it's pretty simple, but there is a lot of math in this. If you're not a fan of math, just to let you know, probably not the game for you.
Well, I mean, I think it's a lot more complex than something like Patchwork. I think I don't find the math too horrendous.
Oh no, it's just straight up addition, but it is a little tricky lining points up, making sure you're paying the right cost for each tile. Then they have the optional rules at the end. And then they have solo rules, but the interesting thing is they have a history of the apple. It's just a one page, but the whole back page is talking about the history of the apple.
Now I'm going to go read that as soon as this is over, because I'm actually intrigued what it's got to say about the history of an apple.
And there's a nice overview at the end. You can have this up on the table. This could have used a cheat sheet for this, but it's not really that important because the game is so easy.
Yeah,
I'm probably going to give the rulebook a 7. I think it does a fine job. Okay. I don't think there's anything wrong really with it.
All right, so let's dig into gameplay. All right, so basically, if I'm going to be the starting player, we're going to do round 1. Okay, we're going to put a 1 up on the die, and we're going to start in the starting location. And whoever's first player will always be circles. This is the 2 players, so there's circles and triangles. So if I were to go first, I'm always going to be circle. Randy's always going to be the triangle.
I did like that. That made it real simple to keep track of whose turn it was. As long as you could remember what shape you were, you never had a problem looking and saying, oh, my turn's coming up. And you
can go and find it, so you already know how to take your turn.
Yeah.
Sometimes. Absolutely, that was a brilliant mechanism that they did there. I greatly appreciate that. So whoever was in charge of that, kudos.
Now you have to have starting honey, because the honey X's the money and the scoring. So the variable, it's variable based upon the number of players and player order. So that's the one thing you do use the rulebook for every time. That would have been nice to have had on the back. That's one of the reasons I docked it a bit on the scoring, because it doesn't have a place where you can easily look this up. You have to sift through the book to get it every time you play, because it is variable.
Okay, so I'm going to go first. I have I have 4 options total, but 2 rows that I can choose from, because I'm between these 2 rows. So I'm going to choose one. Now, one thing I'm looking for is the number on here. So this is 9. So I'm going to have to pay 9 honey, which is quite expensive for this, because I'll look at the honeycomb that is available on there. This one's 3, 2, and 6. But I'm also paying attention to the blossoms that are on there. Now, blossoms get scored separately at the end of each round. They're worth 1 or 2 points, depending on the round. And so that's super useful as well to be aware of. And also I'm looking at the apples, because I want apples that are similar. I do want my apples to end up scoring. But the more apple kinds I get to score, there's a bonus at the end of the game. So there's kind of this process of wanting to get the most score in something, but also getting a variety in hopes to have everything score. So this go around, I think I'm going to go, I don't want to spend 9. That's a lot. Right out the gate, I'm going to pick 6 instead. Okay. And so what I'm going to do, though, is I'm going to place it touching this 4 honeycomb. Now, I'm going to pay 6, okay, because I placed the tile, but I'm going to take the lower of the 2 honeycombs that are touching, in this case 4, and I'm going to get 4 back. So I'm going to need 3 more 1s there, babe. All right. And so now that I've placed the tile, my turn is now over.
The die moves on. Yep. And the die only serves as a round marker. You don't ever roll it in this game. So there's no luck based on that. Mm-hmm. It's all about what tiles come up. That would be the only luck in the game, is what tiles come out. So I've got several choices here. I've got the 2 that were previously on the right-hand side of the die that you had the option of, but I also have 2 more. And this one has 4 varieties of apples on it, and I like that. So I think I'm going to take that one. It gives me a lot of variety. So I'm going to place that on my 4. So I pay 7, but I'll get 4 back. So I get a net cost of 3 to me in the end. So I pay 7, get 4 back. So I'm just going to pay another 1 and to keep my 5.
All right. So I'm going to go here. Now, I do know that Brown is going to be scoring here in a minute. So there are 2 options for Brown, but I also have this off-white that I actually want to trigger as well. So I'm end up paying 11 maybe, if I can afford it. I can, but just barely. Now this will significantly hurt me because I am may be forced to not buy something next round. In that case, I'll just put them over here so I can get those back. So I'm going to take my 11. And now notice that there are 3 honeycombs. So 3 scoring are 3 money gaining from here if I so choose. But I don't have an extra honeycomb to touch. So I'm just going to slate it here. And hopefully I can get a higher one next time.
So now I have the choice of the one that she left behind here or these 2 here, one of which has basically no fruit, but it's got honey on every direction. So the nice thing about this is a really good one for connecting to. So I can place this somewhere, and if I spawn connections off of it, I can get potentially a lot of honey back. So these are nice tiles to have, even though they don't have fruit.
And they have blossoms on there as well.
But
so.
This one connects to 2 of my fruit of the ones I just played. And we got a brown scoring round coming up right now, so at least that way I'll get some honey back. So I'm going to go ahead and just put this one here. I have to pay 4, and I get no money back from it because I'm not touching any of my honey connections yet.
All right, so now we're going to score the brown. So I have 2 brown. It's because it's round 1, I'm going to subtract 1, and that leaves me 1 brown. So I'm going to get 1 honey back.
I have 2 brown as well, so I will also get a honey back.
All right. So then I'm going to go here. I am actually going to pick this up for 4. I'm trying. All right. And then I'm actually going to place it on this 11 and get my 4 back.
Right. So even though the 11 is there, if you connect a 4 to it, you get the lesser of the 2 numbers. So she gets 4 back. So she's giving up a lot of the money she spent to get that 11.
But I have 2 more slots to hopefully make that up. And I knew it's going to help me in my scoring.
And now we have a dark green apple.
Now, I don't have any of those.
I have 1, but it's not enough because basically you subtract the value of the pip, which is 1, from how many fruit you have. So 1 minus 1, 0.
Yep.
So like I said, there's a lot of math, but it's very basic math. Now, the one complaint I do have about this is there's 2 greens, and they're very close in color.
Well, one's polka dotted, one's not.
I understand
one
that,
looks
but
like
when
a
you're looking
pepper.
at the board...
It's very square and actually looks like a pepper.
Let's say you're at Gen Con at 2 in the morning trying to play this game. For example, not that scenario played out, but, I'm just saying.
He was so delirious.
I was so tired. I could not make out the numbers, much less the colors.
It was like midnight. It was just a long day. He's getting old.
Yes. I don't know how cute it is. I'm getting old.
I think you're cute.
So I get to choose between these. Now, this one's got the brown, which I've been getting a lot, or at least getting 2 of. But it does have a lot of flowers. And this one has an orange, which also connects. I think I'm going to go with this one because the nice thing here is I have a 4 already. So if I'm paying 4 and I get 4 back, I don't have to pay any honey at all. I just get my... And I'm connecting an orange and a brown to my trail here.
Yeah, absolutely. So now we're going to be scoring 2 more, and we'll do that here later. So you'll keep on continuing going through doing the different scoring mechanisms. So you'll have 1 round, you'll go a second time, then you'll start your 3rd round, but your 3rd round doesn't go throughout the whole course of the board. There is a marker that has a 3 die pictured on, and it's kind of brownish with a little... that's where you're going to stop. That is actually the end of game, and then you will do another scoring round for everything with all your, all the different scoring, and then that is the end of the game. This game turns out to be fairly quickly if people draft and are paying attention. But I think it's puzzly enough. I actually really enjoyed it. It definitely felt puzzly, but it was still fun, and I liked the drafting estimate, the different scoring mechanisms. I liked it. What about you?
Well, the one thing we didn't talk about is backfilling. So whenever you get to a point where you have no choice, there's one left over, and you backfill by adding one to every spot. So you could have one that keeps pooling and getting a lot of them in it, potentially.
But eventually people are going to start drafting it, because there's a lot of choices there.
Yeah, I do like this. The only concern...
And you can choose a random. If you don't like anything there, but if you choose a random and you cannot pay the cost, you have to turn it on the sheep side, which just gives you 2 money.
Yep.
So it's kind of risky.
Yeah, you don't want the sheep. I mean, they don't serve any purpose
besides
for scoring.
Just 2 honey. That's what it's basically. I'm in a bind. I can't do anything.
Yeah, I'm broke.
But at least you don't get stuck. Yeah. So that's something.
Yeah, it's the consolation prize of the game.
Yeah.
So the big complaint I've seen from a lot of people, and I think it's valid, is there's no planning ahead. It's based on what tiles are coming up, but you can't really strategize because the other players might choose the tiles you want by the time that your turn comes. And I can see that. But, you
can pretty much guess the next one coming.
Yeah. I mean, if your turn is coming up next, I mean, just if it's a four-player game, don't worry about what's going to be out there by the time. Because, I mean, you can look ahead and see where your turn's going to fall.
Well, and you can be like, okay, I hope for that one. I mean, they might still take it, but it's not. I mean, I think you can plan a little bit, but not like super ahead. But that's okay, because you'd want to do it if you can plan out your whole game at the very beginning. So and but you're basically just very simplistically trying to get these fruit to line up. So there's not a lot to it. I do like the addition of the flowers, because that adds another scoring potential. So I wouldn't call this a point salad game, but it's got at least multiple options for scoring. And the flowers did pay off for me quite a bit. You can get a lot of honey just from collecting those, because they score 1 point the first lap around, but they score 2 points the second lap around. But interestingly, they go back down to 1 for the final scoring. Mm-hmm. So you basically are getting and they don't go away. So you're going to score them, accumulate them. Yeah, I think they're very beneficial towards the beginning of the game.
Yeah, you can get a lot of honey, and you gather them again the second time, and they can pay out a big time there.
Yeah.
So not getting fruit is not always a bad thing, because usually they cost less.
Especially like you get these honeycombs at the beginning to have a couple of blossoms and all this honey potential. Yeah. That's really great actually at the beginning.
Yeah.
So I'm not mad at. I mean,
I like the fact that there's multiple ways to score that don't always,
Yeah, I think this gives enough variability. It gives, I think it's a good puzzler.
Yeah.
And it plays actually fairly quick. I like it.
Yeah.
So give it a score.
I'm probably going to give it a 7.5. I think is where I'm at on it. It's not my favorite Uwe game, but it's definitely one of the easier ones he's got out there. I'd say I like it better than Patchwork. I know a lot of people do like Patchwork. I'm not as huge of a fan of Patchwork.
See, I think Patchwork is limited because it's a 2-player. I think it's a fine 2-player.
Yeah.
Don't mistake me. It's actually nice to come up with a 2-player. But I enjoy this way more than I do Patchwork. Right.
And the fact that this can be played well at 2, but also can be played well at 3 or 4, I mean,
yeah, so if this goes up against Patchwork, I'm probably going to end up choosing this, unless I'm feeling super crappy that day. Just because I like the theme. So overall, I actually agree with you, the 7.5. I think that's spot on. I don't know if it quite deserves an 8, but it is a really good, solid game for a lighter puzzler game. Absolutely. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for joining us. We had an absolute blast, and hopefully you'll come hang out with us again. Catch you guys later.
Bye.
Bye.